Hi, and welcome to Cover Brand, where we cover all things branding, marketing, and advertising to help you understand what the hell branding is and how it works to grow your business. Welcome and welcome back to Cover Brand. I'm Ethan Decker, and today I have my dear friend Jeff Leitner. Jeff, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I think I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I want to do me some learning.
First we're going to do some talking. We're going to chat about cover songs and cover bands or cover albums. You came prepared. I know that. So
I did. I am a sucker for an inspirational song. I love a song that encourages me and makes me want to run through a wall. And my favorite cover, I think, is Cake's cover of Donna Summer's "I Will Survive."
that is a killer choice.
It is
Yes.
it is evocative of the original, but totally different.
I think that's also what makes a great cover song is they make it their own. It's not just karaoke, right?
Right. And the way Cake sounds, you would not think of them with an inspirational song,
Yeah.
right? They're kind of cool and hipster, and and then they have this anthem of self-empowerment.
Well, it's also a bit of a screw you song, I hate you song, right?
Sure, but I don't hear I choose not to hear that.
It's good. That's good. The song I like to burst through walls with is the Kool-Aid Man song, actually.
Sure, that would be on brand for you, so to
Oh
speak.
yeah. Oh yeah. It's the
Well,
Kool-Aid Man.
I'm old enough to remember going to discos and dancing to Donna Summer,
Mm.
and in all those years, never once was the Kool-Aid song. A DJ never played that track.
They never blended those two together.
No, never,
Okay.
never.
Maybe Girl Talk will do it. But you know what was funny? I learned about Donna Summer recently. She spent a lot of her formative years in Germany.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think she was born there, but she grew up there. And so when she came back to the States, she was kind of shocked by the way African Americans are treated in America and all the racism. And she's like, she was just not used to being treated so poorly when she was in Germany. So it really colored her world.
wow. So you've just taken my anthem and destroyed it in several different ways because now it is evocative of a 250-year history of treating African Americans badly.
Well,
Thank you.
well, she's tearing down walls everywhere. Let's just say
Sure, sure.
busting through walls. But the cake version is epic. You're spot on. I
In
love it.
fact, I'm anxious for your answers today, and I'm anxious for us to stop talking so I can go listen to
Yeah.
Cake.
Yeah. Okay. So talk about your business. Tell us the situation.
For about half of my career, I've been a solo practitioner. And for the first chunk of it, I gave my business a name, like you have with applied brand science,
Mhm.
even though it was essentially me and a couple of junior people over the years that worked for me, but it was people were hiring me.
Right.
And in the last 10 years or so, I decided I'd just call it me.
Mhm.
So I'm just Jeff Leitner. People look me up as Jeff Leitner.
Right.
I am just that.
And
But
not
as a
me.
result,
That's
say
how they're
again?
naming movies these days is her, it, us, them, me. So you're not actually called me because me.com is probably also taken.
It is. So it's jeffleitner.com.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how you brand just yourself. And
Mhm.
then we get into the sort of the personal branding thing that
Mhm.
I always makes me feel a little creepy. I
Mhm.
think the great advantage of doing business with a person is that it's a person
Yeah.
and not a two-dimensional, you know, two-dimensional business with a mission statement and a so I
Right,
never figured out how to reconcile that.
right.
Help.
Okay. Well, it's a common problem. I have that same problem. I get it. I am applied brain science, but people mostly know me as Ethan. And I think I even have ethandecker.com, but I don't use it yet. So it's part of my collection of URLs
Sure.
that I know.
I think we all have them.
Yeah, yeah, our little stash of URLs.
Mhm.
Well, so I also bristle at that term personal brand because it feels cheesy, right? Even though I'm probably the worst offender when it comes to personal branding because I always wear this orange track jacket. I seem to have a lot of shtick for me. But the way I like to think about it is brand actually followed the original concept, and the original concept was reputation, which we had and we knew thousands of years ago, long before there were such things as brands. And even when the first brands started to exist, back when the first metalsmiths were making the first picks or hoes or shovels and knives, it's usually weapons, right? But it's also
Or
uh,
cattle.
or cattle, branding them. It was just a simple symbol that let people know where it came from, so they knew whether it was reliable or crap. That's it, or it was mine or yours. So the brand on that shovel indicates that Thomas made that shovel, and I like Thomas's work. I can trust Thomas. It was that simple, but it still was just a hook or a handle for Thomas's reputation as a blacksmith. That's all it was. I would certainly give you the permission to eschew the concept of personal brand and just think about your reputation.
That's
Just think,
better.
right?
Yeah, that it and it helps me reconcile a thing. As a brand, you really wanna flatten, it
Mhm.
seems to me, who you are to the public, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, uh, you know, you want to give them something very simple to hold on to, but as a person, we contain multitudes,
Yep.
and I don't want to be a flat two-dimensional.
Right.
I wanna there's more to me than there is to Cheerios.
They're a little bit more. Less fiber, but a whole lot more substance.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
you're right, that the brand becomes that one thing, and let's go back to Thomas the blacksmith. If he's well known in the village or in the county as the good blacksmith, then that brand becomes an easy, simple handle for people to say, "Well, where do I go if I need some good blacksmithing done?" If I need something made of metal, "Oh, it's Thomas, because that's the brand." But then when I go see Thomas, I don't think that's all he does or that's all he is. Like, he could be a nice guy and he could be great with kids and who knows what. Or he's burly and annoying and drinks too
Well,
much.
this is Paul Revere's problem, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like silversmith
Mhm.
and hero of the Revolutionary War.
Oh, poor guy.
So how do you capture that in a single brand?
Right, right. Or if you think of other great famous people like Coco Chanel or Anna Wintour, these are folks who you could say they are really good at personal branding. I mean, the fact that Coco Chanel is still so iconic indicates that she's done something right, but we don't think of her necessarily as imagining herself as a personal brand. She's just Coco, and this is just how she moves through the world, and she knows she has a reputation, but she also does one thing which I think does help get you from just being you to being someone that is a little bit more of a public figure, and that is she's a little more conscious about how she crafts her image, just a little bit. And some of that is the softer side, the values, the way she holds herself, the things she does in the world. But some of it's also you could call it superficial. I like to call it symbolic because we are symbolic creatures. You roll up to a meeting and you're wearing a gorgeous Armani suit with $800 Veneta shoes and a $20,000 Patek Philippe watch, that says a lot without you having to say a word. And it's not superficial, it's very symbolic. Because the opposite is true. If you wore the clothing to, I don't know, some group where you're trying to save the world. I know you work a lot with folks who try and save the world, literally. If you rolled up in that outfit, they might not take you seriously,
Right.
right? They'd think, "Oh god, here come the bankers." And people who don't understand what it really means to stamp out malaria or help solve childhood cancer or whatever it is that you're working on. So we're very symbolic, and I think that folks like Anna Wintour and Coco Chanel just had a natural sense of being very conscious about their choices for some of those symbolic things.
You know, you replacing brand with reputation, which seems really obvious once you've done it, is really helpful because reputation has a fullness to it
Yeah.
that I don't associate with brand, right?
Yeah.
And and then your other point about signaling that reputation is
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah. And you can see the spectrum of how people, and again, let's just talk about people instead of the brands because that's the zone you're playing in, I think. How do those people craft their reputation and how much of a shtick do they have? So if we go from Coco Chanel to Karl Lagerfeld, we know what Karl's famous for in terms of his shtick, right? Do you remember?
I don't.
He wore black, first of all. He loved wearing black suits and he wore black dark sunglasses, huge oversized sunglasses. And then I think if I'm remembering correctly, lots of rings. So he was an eccentric. He looked the part. He looked like a crazy fashion eccentric.
And
Um,
then she had that whole thing where she collaborated with the Germans in the Second World War. So she had her thing.
yeah, yes, yeah. Some of those things are not intentional in terms of how they build your
Sure,
reputation.
sure.
But yes, Anna Wintour famously also wears sunglasses, kind of
And bangs.
oversized, and her famous bangs. Yes, those sharp, harsh, serious bangs, which gives her that kind of sharp seriousness, and that's part of her reputation, part of her image. Uh,
Well, how or why did reputation, which makes perfect sense, get flattened out into brand?
mm,
I mean, Cheerios wants a reputation.
yes, yeah. I think brand started to grow and develop, I wanna say in the between the '50s and the '90s, in fits and starts and in different places. The notion of brand management, I think, grew up in the latter half of the last century, and the notion of a brand as a not just a company's reputation, but the product's reputation. So Cheerios, you're right, is a brand. General Mills is the company. You could say they are a brand too, but they're a company. They have shareholders, they have investor meetings, they have supply chains and all of that kind of stuff. And General Mills, I guess about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, said that they were trying to get a much more diverse set of suppliers. So part of their DEI efforts. I'm not afraid of saying that. And and so
I
that's all
just
part
pulled
of.
all your funding, just
Yeah,
to
exactly.
be clear.
All my deep government contracts.
That's right. All
Well, you
gone.
know what? I don't take a salary, but I do make billions off of my government contracts. That's how
That's right.
magnanimous I am. But yeah, in the latter half of the last century, brand became a bigger thing for brands like Cheerios. And when mass marketing and mass media was a cool thing to do and still is for those things. And then folks like Tom Peters started to use those concepts when it came to individuals. So Tom Peters wrote a book called The Brand U50. And that was one of the many that I think he wrote about this concept of personal branding, where it you're right, it feels a little crass, it feels a little commercial, but it was useful in these 2 ways. One was it got people to think more consciously about their image and about their reputation, and it helped folks who were in big companies realize, those big companies really don't have their back, and you're gonna be kicked out, you're gonna be let go, there are gonna be reductions, and you need to think about your own life and your own career and your own reputation, AKA your own brand, beyond that big company. So it was a good thing at the right time. He had a bunch of nice tricks. So when you think about your own reputation, it is probably unnecessary to think about it as a brand. And as you say, it feels better to think about it as your reputation. And then you can just think about, well, what is your reputation? What are you known for? And it's that big, broad stuff like you help solve the world's hairiest problems, or you help tackle big issues that change the course of industries, if not communities. And then there are little things like, do you wear dark sunglasses and have sharp bangs? Or do you
A
always show
lot of
up
rings.
a lot of rings? Jeff, I see you as a ring guy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Seth Godin has, I think, orange rimmed glasses. It's one of his shticks. Steve Jobs,
Right. Black shirt.
black shirt, New Balance sneakers, and Levi's?
I
I think Levi's. But
You know
yes,
what occurs to me, by the way, I may be reading way too much into this, but brand is really helpful when the consumer is when we're talking about like B2C,
mhm.
but reputation may be more valuable when we're talking about B2B.
It
That
certainly is. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, it just occurred to me that when you think about McKinsey or something, they're a gazillion-dollar consulting firm. They don't I don't know what their brand is, but I know what their reputation is.
Right. And their reputation is for valuing themselves at a gazillion dollars
Yeah,
as well.
but but I don't but I couldn't identify their brand
Right.
exactly,
Right.
right? I
Yeah.
could not. So I just wonder if that's a helpful way for me to think about it.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I do work with some B2B, business to business companies like manufacturers and supply chain people, finance companies, and the bar is really low for that conscious level of branding
Sure.
in that world. Whereas in the world of Nike and Adidas and Cheerios, the consumer products, business to consumer, B2C, the bar is usually a little higher. But it also means it just takes you a little bit to actually have a brand in the B2B world, to be known for a thing. Steve Jobs was known for his outfit and then his great talks,
Right.
right? And so that was his reputation. And so to become a little more conscious of it allows you to think, well, what's the thing? Are you known? I think you're kind of known for your great hair, I gotta say. And you have great hair.
Thank you. It's a toupee. I used to wear bangs, and now it.
That's why
Thank
it's
you.
always so
Thank
fresh.
you.
But yeah, a thing you're known for that's a little superficial is also helpful because those I did say superficial, but those symbolic things, those visuals, for me, it's the orange track jacket and the orange, my little frelk, right? My character. It just helps you float around in people's minds a little more. When you
Yeah.
think of famous fashion people, it's hard to not think of Anna Wintour or Karl Lagerfeld because they were so iconic and they had such a thing. Like, I don't even know how to visualize Tom Ford, who that was.
Yeah, me either. But I could do Ralph Lauren.
You could do Ralph Lauren. Yeah.
Great
So
hair.
and great hair. There you go.
I only buy from people who have equally great hair. That's
That's
my shtick.
that's your criterion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'd say is don't feel like you have to flatten yourself to a Cheerio for sure, but you do wanna think a little more consciously about your reputation. And I know we've talked about this, and I'm not really gonna get into it because we're already way over time, is is those things that are a little bit of your shtick, your bit, your Steve Jobs look, the Anna Wintour bangs, those help people think of you at all and not necessarily just what to think about you. Because
Right.
mostly, Jeff, they're just not thinking about us. We're tiny, tiny, tiny companies,
Right.
solopreneurs. And so the biggest challenge is often, are they thinking about you at all?
Right.
And so what can you do to help them? Maybe if it is the hair, every time they go get a haircut, they think about you because somehow that's part of your shtick is you show up with trimmers and scissors or I don't know what.
I
I
think
don't
I'm just going to send chia pets to my client.
know. That would be so funny.
I'm going to do a cross marketing promotion with Jeff Leitner and chia pet.
Well, you know, they did a Bob Ross chia pet.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
You're you're
But
right
he's
on
gone
track.
now,
Yeah.
which leaves a vacuum.
Yes. A vacuum for great hair chia pets.
Uh-huh.
Who knew? The world needs more of that. Great.
Well, thank you.
I hope that helps.
It does. The conversion from brand to reputation, which was the whole point of brand anyway, is really helpful.
Great. Great. Good to see you.
Lovely to see you.
All right. Talk to you soon. Are you planning a big team offsite, a sales meeting, or a large company event, and you want to bring in a speaker who will blow people away? Then your first call should be Oprah. But if you can't get Oprah, call me. Also, if you got something out of this episode, think of one person who might also get something out of it and send it to them as a way of saying, hey, thinking of you.